Oh, well, she won't mind. Good afternoon, Sangha. Happy Tuesday. Just a few announcements before we get started. Please remember, if you are at home, to mute your microphone. Also, Novena Prayers. Happy Tuesday. Just a few announcements before we get started. Please. Okay. Correct. So Novena Prayers occur every third Thursday of the month. So they'll be coming up next week, Thursday, October 21st. This month is flying by. Please send your confidential prayer request for yourself or for your loved ones who are sick, suffering misfortune, or departed. You send those to prayer@heartwoodrefuge.org. We've been getting a lot of prayer requests lately for those suffering or recovering from COVID, a lot of people who are having surgeries and things like that. So no matter, we're happy to pray for everyone, big or small. Please feel free to send in those prayers. And, it's really, it's a moving ceremony, and we're very happy to be a part of that. So feel free to send in those prayers for next week, next Thursday. Also, November 4th at 10 a.m., we'll be continuing our 5 mindfulness trainings. So that'll be streamed live again at 10 a.m. on Sunday, November 4th. I think I said Monday accidentally. Sunday, November 4th at 10 a.m. And you can go to our website to register to view that live. There continues to be opportunities to volunteer at Thrifty Treasures, and Christmas shopping and all that's coming up soon. So I'm sure we'll have lots of great shoppers coming in. So if you're interested, please email us at thriftytreasureswnc.com. Please like, follow, and share Heartwood and Thrifty Treasures on all social media to help us spread the Dharma and further our mission. Thank you so much.
So we have a lot of construction going on around here. We're playing musical chairs on our location because we have a huge crane doing some work, guys doing some work on the roof and uh, decks being painted and so forth. And it's much like how we have to do with our practice every day. I always talk about hardwood being a fix or repair daily. Um, that's how we have to be in our practice. You know, if we are not heedful, mindful, well, they see it. See, a two-way.
You look nervous. I don't know.
Okay. Wow. All right, I'm only Yes, I think I am. And can you hear me? Can you hear me? They're saying yes, they can hear me, and I'm only really half that size. I don't know what's wrong. What's wrong with the picture there? Okay, so for the remaining 8 weeks, let's see, 8, 16, 24, 9, 18, 27, 36. Okay, 4. For the remaining 9 weeks of our 50 weeks of transformation, we're going to focus on the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva. Those in the Dhammacharya program in the first cohort are completing that this month. For those of you who haven't gotten to it, it's going to be a very interesting study, and you'll get a jump start on it. And the reason why I think it's important for us to end the year with this is because of the great aspiration that we have, not only to awaken in this lifetime, but also to, first of all, not be a hindrance to others, and also to have the same aspiration for their awakening. Now, sometimes that clashes with how we feel about what's good for ourselves. And that's why we're going to undertake this study. By that, I mean, sometimes we choose something for ourselves. We work hard to attain it. We give our attention and our devotion to it. And then we find ourselves up against someone else, either in a living situation, in a working situation, someone we encounter, on the street, some people that we necessarily have to be associated with. And that's when the clash comes, when we have to take down or reconsider that we want to do something that would be perhaps more beneficial for the other on their path. We're good until it comes to that point. But when it comes to that point, then we're gonna choose the self, unless we have practiced and developed in such a way that we have come to see the self, the other as equal to oneself, and then even surpass that to not think of self and other, that kind of unification that has the capacity to weigh everything at one time. Sometimes this means saying something that's uncomfortable to say that needs to be said to someone that we love as much as we love ourselves. Sometimes this means not saying something, that we want to say or that could be said, but we decide it's not necessary to say it because the one we're saying it to can't receive it. So what's the point? Except that it will break some harmony. It will maybe destroy some future possibility of that person being open to that thing that they need to hear. And so we can't always decide, well, this is the truth, but the truth doesn't always have to be said, or we may not be the one to say it. I think I mentioned it. I think I mentioned it in Sunday's talk about the 5 kinds of people that you can't help, or it's difficult to help. There's one who doesn't want help, one who wants help, but they're in giving, there has to be a receiver. So one has to also be coming towards you as you're going towards them to give or to offer assistance. And if they're not coming or toward you in an approach of receptivity, then you can't help. It's the one who wants help, but they just don't want it right now. And there's the one who wants help, but they don't want it from you. And so we have to look at and consider all of these things. And when we are engaging in an encounter, we have to have the wisdom to sum up what will be my effect in this coming together. And one has to really not be so interested in getting their point across or making someone even accept their views, but hoping for the best possible outcome in that encounter, that one can say some little thing that might help a person going forward. So it's almost like the oath that the physicians take, first do no harm. You know, even if you can't do something that you would like to do, don't do any harm. So we're going to talk about what it takes to be able to do this over the next, on our remaining 9 weeks of practice. I normally use a very classical text for this. I'm extreme in that kind of way. I like the archaic sayings, you know, because, you know, political correctness just wasn't in the mix at that time. You know, people intently practicing, it was like, tell me, I want to know, you know, but now you have to tell me in a certain way for me to be able to receive it. We like euphemisms. We're concerned about our feelings, so make sure you said it to me in a way that won't hurt my feelings. It's all of these kinds of things that actually hinder our growth when we're not all in. When we're all in, whichever way it comes, you know, I can take that and I can ponder that and see if there's something in there for me. And it takes that, we can't be all into ourselves and all in to the path at the same time, you know. So we have to choose ourselves or we choose the path. In walking the path, we find our true self. And but this time I picked one that was not so, you know, where the language was not so archaic. And I'd like for you to download it this week and keep it for the remaining 9 weeks. And this is a translation. You can find it on Mindful. No, Mindful. I'll tell you before we sign off. I think this is Unfettered Mind. You can find it on the Unfettered Mind site. So you can just type in 37 practices of a Bodhisattva Unfettered Mind, and it will come up. And this was penned by Tokme Zongpo in the 14th century. He was he was a scholar. He was an accomplished practitioner, and he was a master of logic. Now, the thing about logic is logic often clashes with our feelings. Some people are so logical that they basically have no feelings. And the Buddha never said that we don't feel. He just said that we don't have to be carried away by them. We don't have to react to feelings, but it doesn't mean the feelings are on thing. It doesn't mean that one doesn't feel something in the body. He keeps talking about mind, body, and mentality, materiality, and the linkage and the connection between the two. And he said some illnesses born in the body that transfers into the mind, messes up our mind. Some sicknesses in the mind that transfers to our body or causes our actions to also be unhealthy. And in this dynamic, we find ourselves, it's called like our boat. They reference the sages reference the human being in a body as if being in a boat. Sometimes they reference this mentality, materiality, as they call it home. So when you read something about leaving home, they're not necessarily talking about leaving your mother and your father, or if they're talking about this precious boat we have, they're talking about, this human incarnation. And so we have to really understand spiritual speak, and we can't always give worldly definitions to it and walk away with the most beneficial understanding. So I like even how they translated the title as a summary of how all awakening beings behave or carry themselves, how awakening beings behave. Now, I like the word behave because sometimes we think differently than how we act. Yeah. Sometimes we're surprised that we just did that. Or maybe we just thought that, or we just said that, because like, that's not me. But it was you a few minutes ago. So we have ways of excusing ourselves or excusing those that are near and dear to us in ways that we cannot seem to understand or excuse others. So it's really a practice in giving to others the kind of grace that we give to ourselves, and also not allowing ourselves an excuse to devolve into our lower character, but constantly giving the first the mindset and then having to walk it out that makes us feel a sense of pride or stepping into the ennobling Eightfold Path. I don't think it was like the noble path, but it's the ennobling path, one that allows us to walk out our lives with a certain kind of dignity, with a certain joyousness for sure. But right now I'm talking about the kind of dignity and stature that we really think it's possible for us to exemplify. And yet we fall short. And this is just a matter of turning the mind, shifting the mind, because the mind is chief. Whatever we think and ponder on, that becomes the inclination of our mind, and our actions follow that kind of mind. And so, we don't have to, I've said it all this year, we don't have to learn the 84,000 teachings. We get hold of just a few of them and really walk them out. That's really all that's required. So it's not so much being on an academic pursuit of the Dharma. A little salt goes a long way in a dish. And a little leaven leavens the whole lump. And so this Dharma is like that. It's an ingredient that if we drop it in, it breaks down. It breaks down all the stoniness in the heart. It breaks down the ignorance and delusion of the mind. and it helps us more easily to uproot our defilements, to not nurture unsprouted seeds of ungoodness. Is that a word?
Is today.
Well, there's only un or dis. So disgoodness is not it. We'll go with ungoodness. Not goodness. Not good. Not good. What's not good? and we'll find happiness and contentment on the path, because it won't be the kind of striving that we think is required when we're undertaking an academic pursuit and we're pressing in to get an understanding. It's more of a letting go of held views so that what is true can just manifest itself in our presence. So it's an effort. The path and the walk should become more effortless, not more strenuous the further along we go. And depending on how we are taught or introduced to the Dharma, we can miss this essential essence of practice. And I would like to see people enter into that ease and that rest. And a lot of the discomfort is in really knowing ourselves, knowing the things we do, knowing the things that we think. And then, of course, there's some who don't even know what they do and don't even know what they think. And as Buddha Master says, they are the most pitiful. So sometimes when you really take up, make a serious commitment to your practice, it gets tough because you really start to see things that you didn't see before. And you start thinking, oh, I'm worse off now than I was in the beginning. But it's not that you're worse off. I mean, ignorance is not bliss. Just because you don't know, you don't see it, doesn't mean that it's not there, But once we do see it, it's almost like when you buy a car, you buy a new car and you get one that's like, you don't see that many of them, but as soon as you buy one, everywhere you look, you see the car. Not only the car you bought, not only the car you bought, but in the same color, And it's that way, like when we are uncovering things about ourselves, suddenly we see these things that we didn't see before, and we feel like we're worse, but we're not worse, just knowing that that's part of the practice. And it's part of the journey. So we have to learn how to see things there, And that's why it's so important to have an impartial view, to not take things so personally. And at this level, one is focusing on oneself, but then once one comes to know oneself, one forgets about oneself. And then they can see the 10,000 things, but in the beginning, one is suddenly seeing themselves. So at that point, there's two things that happen. Either one begins to work at uprooting the unwholesome and fostering the wholesome, or they project it out on everybody else, so they see everybody else's stuff, and in both ways. So there becomes some adoration of someone that they think is good, and some aversion to most of the 99% of the rest of the people. Yeah. So this text, the way he says it, a summary of how awakening beings behave. I think it's good because it's like holding up a mirror. and one can just see where they need, you know, or they have some smudge on their face, you know, and that's all it is. The Dharma being a mirror for us and giving us some tips on how to be more beautiful. So the first one says, oh, so we're going to take 4, 9, 18, 27, 36. Yeah. We're going to take 4 a week. And you can take any 4 a week that you want to work on. I think to work on more than 4 is just going to be no way to do. Not if we want to do really good, really be introspective and really determine for ourselves, you know, what modification is necessary, if any, in our behavior. And we're going to go just straight to the behavior, not what we think about it. That's like the pseudo on 2 kinds of thoughts, you know, just put it in this category of this. It's wholesome or not, it's beneficial or not, it's useful or not. That's it. No yeah buts, no, nothing, you know, don't try to defend it, don't try to categorize it, don't just do the initial dividing, this side or this side. And if it's in the unwholesome side, what could you foster in your mind speak or even in your action when one is not feeling it, but really believes that this is the way, you know, a holy being, this is the conduct of a holy being. Can you just do that thing because you think that is, you really embrace that is the way, you know, even if it doesn't feel like it, even if you don't feel like it, even if it doesn't feel good, you know, and just see what result there is when you go back and do your nightly reflection. And I think all of us are now reflecting at least 3 times, right? But 3 times is not enough times in the day, you know. Let your mind be on that reflection as much as your mind is on all the other cajillion things you do in the course of a day. You know? And after a while, we'll be constantly observing. We'll be quicker to catch something, and we'll be less inclined, you know, to stray far from our aspirations. So it says, you who see, so I'm going to go through them today, and not all of them, but I'll go as far as we go today. You download and you can pick any 4. And for the rest of the weeks, we're going to share what we can. Now, one reason that I think sharing what we discover is important is, like, you know, I'm always like telling on myself, and I do, to encourage you to be honest with yourself about, you know, what you do good, or what you fall short on, you fall short on. You know, it's just about noticing and seeing what corrective action, if any, is necessary, or with what motivation you did that good thing. And you know that by how you think about the good you did later. If you weren't praised for it, if you felt that it wasn't appreciated, if they didn't do what you wanted them to do thereafter, or, you know, you look and see, does it ever boomerang back to, you know, me? And if it does, then we know that the motivation was good. So forget about what they did at that point, and I'm looking at, then my motivation, it was not completely pure. If it was given, you know, with strings attached, if something's required, if I have to, you know, relate in a certain way because you did, then it wasn't given freely. It wasn't freely given without a string attached. And so And then when you recognize this, then what will you do? How will you speak to your mind? What's the conclusion that you come to about how you will conduct yourself going forward regarding that situation? So this is all self-help. We all have to do our own work. So it says, you who see that experience has no coming or going, yet pour your energy solely into helping beings, my excellent teachers and Lord all-seeing, I humbly and constantly honor with my body, speech, and mind. The fully awake, the Buddha's source of joy and well-being, all come from integrating the noble way, because integration depends on your knowing how to practice. I will explain the practice of all bodhisattvas. Number one, right now you have a good boat, fully equipped and available, hard to find. What is this boat? Nothing. To free others and you from the sea of samsara, day and night, fully alert and present. Study, reflect, and meditate. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. Now, in the classic, it says, all sons of the Buddha all practice this way. I just love it because it lets me know where people are. Right away, I'm not doing that. I struck out the word sons and I put, or I added and daughters. And I'm like, see, you're missing the whole boat. I mean, you already got sidetracked by your trigger to a word, So when we'll get beyond the word triggers, the word is not the thing, but look and see, what it's pointing to and stay with the topic, like stay focused. But because that's not my what I want us to do this week is work on our triggers. We've done a lot of that, working on our triggers this year, but right now I want you to really get an idea of what is the sublime behavior of a bodhisattva, and then one can know whether they are, a bodhisattva in the causal stage. Yeah. It says, attraction to those close to you catches you in its current. Aversion to those who oppose you burns inside. And indifference that ignores what needs to be done is a black hole. Leave your homeland. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. So when he's talking about leaving your homeland, what is he talking about? This is how you're going to go into this in our attachment, the things that we are attached to and the things that we are attracted to. Yes.
Leave your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It can mean more than that. What else can it mean?
What you know.
And what else can it mean? That's good.
The illusion that your senses are reality.
That's good. What else?
Being attached to things.
Your habitual conditioning.
Habitual conditioning. Yes. I couldn't hear super.
Yeah, being attached to things.
Gosh, you should be clear.
Your habitual conditioning. Yes. What else, Suka?
Being attached to things.
Mm-hmm. Being attached to things, and not just things, but oh, that was hard to come up because we all have families. Families.
Being attached to people.
Yeah. Being attached, and you have to understand what attachment means. It doesn't mean not caring for your loved ones. I remember Bonte was telling, where is she? Bonte was telling me, I said, how does section is doing? I said, good. She had to go home for a while and to see her mother. Then while she was home, then her family asked her, could you stay a little while longer? And so I said she ended up staying for about 6 weeks. He said that was about 5.5 weeks too long, because then coming back and getting reacclimated, to the solitary life becomes difficult, because right away our attachments start again, and then we have to, unless one has really renounced sufficiently with the growth that comes in time, then that's why it's so easy if we go back to our familiar haunts, the familiar people that we used to hang with, and our familiar behaviors or behaviors we had, then we find a longing for them that, and a little then becomes a lot. We'll do it 1 time, 2 times, 5 times. Oh, this is what I do, and then one starts to feel dejected, sad on the path, thinking, oh, I'm not getting any better, or I can't get any better. And so that's why he tells us to watch very carefully what we step away from, that we don't go back to it. But you see, every person, something else jumped up in their mind. And that's why it's extremely difficult. The Dharma is too broad, for any person to define anything in any one particular way, because we have to unravel this for ourselves. I think I know you, but I know you from over here. I don't really know you, but you can know you. And so he talks about indifference, he talks about attraction, and he talks about aversion, that being basically where we live every day. We're all every day, all day, we're attracted to something, we're averse to something, or we're indifferent to something all day. And this practice is designed to take us away from being just blindly and unconsciously averse, indifferent, or attracted, but to consciously recognize which we are at any time, and figure out if this is the free zone and I'm averse, how do I get from here to here? If this is the free zone, and I'm attracted or have attachments, how do I get from here to here? So from one person, they have to move to the right. Another person, they have to move to the left. The thing is, if I
together that create
the thing is
life as it is, and that's why we're always talking about.
And that's why, but when I'm thinking I need to move more to the middle way, I need to move from left to right, I think everybody else needs to move from left to right. So I'm trying to make everybody go in my way. And if you're not doing what I think should be done at this time in this particular way, then I have some issue with you, or I think you're doing something wrong, or I have a view about that. But it's my full-time job to have my view out, like where am I on this spectrum, and which way do I need to step, and not assume that because I need to step from the left to the right, so does everybody else. Somebody might be on this extreme and they need to move to the left. And this is what allows us to just be more. Use the word forgiving, but that's not really the best word. Or maybe another one will come to me. Well, I can say not so judgmental about others. It doesn't mean that you have to allow others to enforce their belief upon you, or enforce your acceptance of what they think. Leave people free to decide that. But judgment takes up a lot of room It takes up a lot of space in the mind. You know, it's a time waster and it's a life killer. You know, so just leave all of that. This is the practice. Focus on. Says don't engage disturbances and reactive emotions will gradually fade away. Don't engage distractions in spiritual practice will naturally grow, naturally grow. Don't engage in distractions in spiritual practice, naturally grows. But sometimes we have something that we like to do. And the more we indulge in that, you know, the less we do the other things that we want to do. We say we want to do them, but our time is taken up in these other things that we do, you know. So then one has to like just say, okay, actually I like that more than I like this. I mean, like we just like fess up, just be honest about that. And sometimes in our heart of hearts, we don't, but we don't have the discipline to do. So if one comes to a place where one is encouraged to apply that discipline, don't waste that. Don't waste your time. You need to actually apply it. But the biggest thing is to be able to apply it without a constraint, without an outer constraint, arousing one's own will to match one's aspiration. And that's a work that has to be done on the inside. Thing is that when you start doing it, there is a kind of confidence that comes, you know, and one really starts to feel good about themselves and good about their practice because they're living up to the aspiration, or they see that something is possible that they thought just a short while ago was not possible. Or suddenly they have more clarity around things than they had before. And it becomes our natural way, our natural mode of being, not contrived, but when really stepping in to what it is that they say, and living their talk. It says, keep awareness clear and vivid, and there's the word, and confidence in the way arises. Rely on silence. This is the practice of the Bodhisattva. I like that, rely. But this is the store. I could call that the best thing. Silence here doesn't only mean like, you know, quiet, or it's more expansive to that. It's speaking of the stillness, not conceiving so much in our head about what we see and what that means and what something is and who somebody is. You know, like the mind's always conceiving, creating things, you know. And I've said it often that the scientists have discovered that, you know, like we don't hear everything that's said, that over the course of a sentence, especially if it's one like mine, my sentences are long, too long, but that the mind like just checks out of that and it skips and it takes every few words and it strings together something. So we rarely hear what's actually being said. We're actually hearing what our mind has put together. And sometimes that's correct, and sometimes it's not. You see, this is not rocket science. You see, it really isn't. You know, like how to live happy in this world, how wisdom just spontaneously arises from in us. We're not going to be able to take it in this way. But it spontaneously arises when we find ourselves at the right intersection. You know, and even when we're not at the right intersection, when we recognize we're on the wrong street, that's not a bad place to be. It's when you're on the wrong street and think you're on the right one that there's the problem. But when you can recognize I'm at the wrong intersection, you know, that is the beginning of wisdom, or that is wisdom too, you know. You will separate from longtime friends and relatives. You will leave behind the wealth you worked to build up. The guest, your consciousness, will move from the end, your body. Forget the conventional concerns. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. Now, and it takes all kinds for this world to run. And at some time, I was in some other occupation. I was in some other work that was useful to the running of the world. It was useful to somebody, some things that I did in a certain way, you know, in certain environments. So it takes all kinds. We have all levels of beings in this world. But it doesn't mean that all the time one has to do all of those different things. It's more like everybody in their right place. And then nothing goes undone. So sometimes we're just we're not in the right place, or we're in the right place at the wrong time, or we're in the right place, but in the wrong role, or, you know, and things don't have to be all or nothing. It could mean just shifting roles, and then everything works out like it should. Yeah. But we always think that if something is wrong, only the opposite of that makes it right. And that's not really true. There may be some adjustment required. But if we base that adjustment on either our aversion or our liking something or somebody, then we will miss implementing the wisdom that's truly required in that moment. And that's why he speaks about things sort of in an orderly way, because it's difficult to make the right decisions if there's a lot of aversion and a lot of attraction in your heart towards things, towards people, certain people, certain things. We have to really get to that neutral space and see the joy of the inclusiveness, of the single-mindedness, or the unification of that. And that can't be all outside. One has to be included in that. So don't be denigrating towards oneself, nor should one think more highly of themselves than they ought to think. Even if they are high, he said we should think soberly. With some friends, the three poisons keep growing. Study, reflection, and meditation weaken, and loving kindness and compassion fall away. Give up bad friends. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. With some teachers, your shortcomings fade away and abilities grow, like the waxing moon. Hold such teachers dear to you, dearer than your own body. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. There's another translation of this that comes from what Shakyamuni Buddha said. He said, like, when you have a teacher that points out your fault, stick with that one. Locked up in the prison of their own patterning, who can ordinary gods protect? Who can you count on for refuge? Go for refuge to the three jewels. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. The triple gem, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and we speak of the awakened one. I mean, Shakyamuni said he was either, I am getting old. He was either the fifth or there were 5 Buddhas that came before him. This world, you know. He didn't say that he discovered it. He said he rediscovered the true path, and he wanted to tell us about it. He said that he saw many who only had a little dust in their eyes, and he shared, and they awakened. So there's many before, there's many after. It's like when we concretize on one figure, and that's the only one. Well, then you get what you got with that. I mean, like, what's the point? It can't happen for you. We have to actually ask ourselves what we really believe. Yeah. So then we should know then that Bodhisattvas don't necessarily have to be Buddhists then, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm just checking. The suffering in the lower realms is really hard to endure. The sages say it is the result of destructive acts. For that reason, even if your life is at risk, don't engage in destructive actions. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. The happiness of the world, 3 worlds, disappears in a moment like a dewdrop on a blade of grass. The highest level of freedom is one that never changes. Aim for this. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. And then I'm going to skip down to number 12. Even if someone driven by desperate want steals or makes someone else steal everything you own, dedicate to him your body, your wealth, and all the good you've ever done or will do. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. So last week we had a theft at Hartwood. Somebody stole some money. So can't know who it was or what it was. And so in talking with one of the sisters here, you know, her mind was really, really disturbed and perturbed about it. I said, well, I used all the psychic power I have to try to get a clear vision of who did it, and I can't, so I'm done with it. You know, there's nothing else for me to do with that. I'm not gonna run my mind through any more scenarios. I don't know, I didn't see it, and I didn't get a vision of it. So maybe I'll do something else in how, you know, we hold monies that are, you know, in the bowl or something like that. But there's no point in taking it any further with my mind. And then I tried to follow number 12, dedicate to the one that steals from you, your body, your wealth, and all the good you've ever done and will do. I have such a piece of it. And I'm like, is this a test? Right? Because what month? Was it this month or was it last month? Last month? Last month. Yeah, the end of last month. So we had 2 burglaries at Thrifty. The first one, like I was like a great Buddhist. The second one, outside, I was a great Buddhist. You know, and the things I said to other people. But inside, a sister was getting a little pissed off, you know, and I had to really, you know, think about how I wanted to think about it. and how I wanted to hold it so that it doesn't become something, so that yesterday's or last month's issue doesn't become like a chain around my ankle, you know, in my mind. And instead, I started thinking about the conditions and really opening my eyes and looking around me and seeing all of the, you know, the drug situation here. It's really bad. I remember when we started working with the homeless youth, and they were talking about homeless kids around. I'm like, we don't have that problem here. I mean, all of us felt that same way. We don't have that problem here. We said, you know, you don't know where to look. I said, well, tell me where to look. And they began to show me along the railroad tracks and under the garages of commercial spaces, like the bank parking, under parking garage. That's where they would be in life. And so I responded with what was needed. They needed housing. And they needed love, they needed care, they needed direction, they needed to be put on a path. And we had 55 organizations in Little Hendersonville, and not a one could see where it fit with their purpose for existence. Not one could see where they could fit this into the work that they do. It's okay, well, then I'll start something. Then it came, could anybody do something with this besides the Buddhist folk? But nobody really wanted to. And so we did. We did what needed to be done. And then people really began to acknowledge they thought the problem was too big. Nobody wanted to get their hands dirty with that. But then they saw that you can do something. And they did. So we have a bad drug problem here. And I'm seeing it very clearly. I sat out there in that parking lot one night and I watched how many drug interactions, in the shopping center occurred. I mean, like I know, like I never even saw it before. It goes on all day and all night. The cars come from two different entrances. They converge side by side. They exchange and they're gone. Then I begin to look at the people, the young people. And you can see that they're hurting. And so it soothed my frustration, I say, around the break-ins. Then I just had to do something that provides more security. One thing, if they come now, it'll take them 5 minutes to break the glass, the kind of glass I got. The other kind, I had to just hit it with a hammer and it breaks into little pieces and shatters. Now I have the kind you got to beat out the whole door, because it has something interwoven in it, to make it. And when I did that, then the landlord came and he did the lights. Well, I put them in, but he reimbursed for the lights and then reimbursed for the door. So now we have like a buddy system. I got, we needed more security cameras on the property. The things that we could do, that's what I'm saying. And now I'm done. I'm done with that. So there are ways that we can move on, even when whether something good is happening to us, we don't have to be too happy about it. When something bad happens, something bad or unfortunate happens, that's we don't have to be too upset about it. Of course, the other thing is that I don't believe that there's anything that happens to me, good or not good, that's not, that's not the result of cause and effect. Cause and effect in my life. That there is a karmic cause, a karmic connection. So I accept that. Sometimes we accept that except when something bad happens to us. And then you have like a doctrinal check-in. You need to know what you really believe. And the best way to know is when something unfortunate happens. Yeah. Even if you have done nothing wrong at all and someone still tries to take your head off, spurred by compassion, take all his or her evil into you. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. It's getting tough now. By the time we get to number 13, and it goes to 37, so we can kind of see where we are on that path, right? Even if someone broadcasts to the whole universe slanderous and ugly rumors about you, in return, with an open and caring heart, praise his or her abilities. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. Now, those of us who think we have a really good meditation practice on the cushion, the Buddha said, I don't call that practice. He said, I just call that a pleasant abiding here and there. He said, but this is what I call practice. So if somebody says, oh, this is Mahayana text, the Buddha didn't say that. Where did he say that? Just go to the Majjhima Nikaya and read Sutta number, I think it's six or eight. It's called Inference, or the rubbing out of self. Because this is the thing. When we can check off these points, then one knows that one has abandoned this notion of an individuated and superior self. Not because of all the look like holy things we do, but how we stand up under these kinds of adversity. Even if someone humiliates you and denounces you in front of a crowd, think of this person as your kind teacher and humbly honor him. This is the practice of the Bodhisattva. Well, you can overcome this, you know it. There's no doubt. You don't have to go asking anybody. You know, what do you think about me? Or telling anybody, I am this, I am that. You know it. Even if a person you have cared for as your own child treats you as his or her worst enemy, lavish him or her with loving attention, like a mother caring for her ill child. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. Even if your peers or subordinates put you down to make themselves look better, treat them respectfully as you would your teacher. I mean, that's if you treat your teacher respectfully. Put them above you. Put them above you. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. See, this is where the real work is done. And I tell you the truth, if you can live this way, it'll be more of a teaching than you could ever teach someone. To just be able to live this way, authentically in front of others, not faking out. I mean, really. When you're down and out, held in contempt, desperately ill and emotionally crazed, don't lose heart. Take into you the suffering and negativity of all beings. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. Even when you're famous, honored by all, and as rich as the God of wealth himself, don't be pompous. Know that the magnificence of existence has no substance. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. If you don't subdue the opponent inside, which is your own anger, although you subdue opponents outside, they will just keep coming. Muster the forces of loving kindness and compassion and subdue your own mind. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. And I'm gonna end with this on 22. like 22, whatever arises in experience, that's your mind. Mind itself, that's your mind. But the empty mind itself is free of any conceptual limitations. Know that. And don't generate subject object fixations. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. Bit by bit, we're being stripped down from everything that we hold dear about ourselves. And there's something about this stripping down that brings the freedom and the liberation from this pain. If those who want to be awake have to give even their bodies, what need is there to talk about things that you simply own? Be generous, not looking for any return or any result. This is the practice. For bodhisattvas who want to be rich in virtue, a person who hurts you is a precious treasure. It helps you cultivate patience for everyone until you're completely free of all irritation or resentment. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. And then that was just 27, and I'm going to stop there. And it goes all the way to 37. But in 36, he sums it up. In short, in everything you do, know what is happening in your own mind by being constantly present and aware to what? By being constantly present and aware to what? To what is happening in your own mind. You bring about what helps others. This is the practice. To dispel the suffering of all beings without limit, with wisdom freed from the three spheres, direct all goodness generated by these efforts to the great awakening. This is the practice. All the sons of the Buddha practice this one. Thank you for coming today. Okay, so the title is the 37 Practices of a Bodhisattva, and find this version on Unfettered Mind. And if you really like it tough, you can look at some of the other versions. I think they're very helpful because they just like bullseye straight up. Deal with it. Thank you. May you be well and happy and peace. May no harm come to you and no danger. May you always be able to meet the inevitable difficulties of life.